Good evening, Internet. Yashoda here with West Coast Yoga. We have the Cielo Rath Yatra quickly approaching this weekend, and so for the occasion, I'd like to make a brief video. I'll be reading tonight from the Bhagavad Gita, Chapter 4, Vita Raga Bhaya Krodha Manmaya Mam Upashritaha Bhavo Jnana Tapasa Puta Madbhavam Agata. Being freed from attachment, fear, and anger, and being fully absorbed in me, many persons in the past became purified by knowledge of me, and thus they all attained transcendental love for me. What Krishna is explaining in this verse is things we need to avoid. These topics will come up later in the 6th chapter. Krishna talks about the eightfold mystic process, beginning with Yama Niyama. Yama means things that should be accepted, and Niyam means things that should be rejected. So here in the 4th chapter, Transcendental Knowledge, the Lord is offering a preliminary understanding of the subject. A aspiring yogi, a transcendentalist, has certain measurable characteristics. It's not that just I love God in my heart, and that is the full measure of my devotion. As we practice devotion more and more, following the footsteps of the great authorities, there's actually a calculable measure of progress. 16 rounds, 4 regulative principles, etc. And Krishna is telling us what to avoid. Lust, anger, and fear. Luckily, as Vaishnavas, not only do we have access to the Lord's preliminary instruction, we can also approach the subject from the spiritual dimension. There's also a spiritual quality of lust. There's also a spiritual quality of anger. And I'll touch on these briefly. In discussing spiritual anger, one of the chief examples is that of Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva is famous for destroying the material world, but that is his assigned duty. He's the guna avatar, tamo guna avatar. He has to render this universe, its different occupied planets, into a more subtle condition, a more dissolved condition. He's like a digestive agent. And he gets his power and his potency from the Lord himself in the spiritual world, the Lord Vishnu. And also in the spiritual world, you have the original anger. The original anger begins with the goddess of fortune. The goddess of fortune is a little frustrated early in the morning because although she's lying comfortably in bed with Lord Narayan, the Lord of her heart, she knows that as soon as the crow, the chicken, or any other bird in their garden begins making noise, early in the morning during their Brahma Muhurta, usually it's the darn bees, because the bees are the first creatures to wake up. Their loud buzzing from the drones wakes up the birds, the peacocks, the pigeons, and of course the male chicken, the rooster, who begins to crow before the sun rises. And Krishna, being the most dutiful husband, must rise from bed, but the goddess of fortune puts up a fight. My lord, please stay. So what does Krishna do after he rises? He touches water for purification, he has a sacrificial fire, he chants the Gayatri, he meditates on himself. What else would God meditate upon? Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. So Krishna has this whole daily routine,